Well, it's a happy Thanksgiving here on the Buckeye Breakdown podcast. The Ohio State Buckeyes are wrapping up their work week ahead of the game on Saturday afternoon. And today we take a quick but a deep dive into what that matchup's going to be when the Ohio State defense is on the field against the Michigan offense that's struggling pretty badly. All that and more on this episode of the Buckeye Breakdown podcast.
We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State
with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today.
Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown.
Well, welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Buckeye Breakdown podcast. And let us be the first, probably not the first, but let us be the first to wish you a very happy Thanksgiving. Anthony Moeglin alongside my partner and former Buckeye offensive tackle, Kevin Woidke. And Kevin, we got a lot to cover on today as we get you set for the Ohio State defense, looking at the Michigan offense. But before we do that, we got to start with some Thanksgiving talk, man, because ton to be thankful for. But as that plate fills up on later this afternoon for you, what does it look like? What are some of the toppings? What are the ingredients that are on your Thanksgiving plate?
Yep. Usually go with my dad will deep fry a bird every year, so that's always pretty good. Some mashed potatoes, roll, some butter, and then some bourbon. That's about it.
There we go. Hey,
it's a very easy plate for me. Not a big green bean guy, as you can tell. Not a big, I'm not so much part of the rhubarbs. It's just more of a pretty simple meat and potatoes kind of guy.
There you go. We had you set up and squared up for that one for sure. You're not going to shock anybody there with your response. But no, seriously, wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving. Hope that you're able to spend some great time with friends, with family, watch some football while you get 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds of dinners for you. So appreciate you jumping in, spending some time with us here on this Thanksgiving Day. And Kevin, as we turn the page here and get to the second half of the week, the intensity is certainly going to start to creep up. You know, we talked about it on Monday, kind of how this week progresses for the players and for the students and everything. But you get to Thursday of the work week and you get to that where you start to really just kind of hone in the details of the game plan. It's going to be more that specific third down, red zone type of day where you're really working on the kind of the margins of the game. And then too, for these guys mentally, it's starting to get into that 48-hour range and things are starting to really get pretty excited and the guys really start turning that page. So really big opportunity here for this week for this Ohio State team. And they got to be feeling good, man, on defense, because you come off a week where you shut down a red hot Indiana offense and hold them to under 150 yards of total offense. And this defense is really starting to come into their own and playing like they like to call themselves. They call themselves BIA, but this really is looking like one of the best in America.
Oh, yeah. The DBs are definitely BIA. Is BIA the whole defense now?
I thought it was, but I could be totally wrong on that. But
it used to be they were the Silver Bullets and then BIA. But I've been gone a few years. I'm not sure. I don't know why they'd ever give up on the Silver Bullets, but new regimes come in, they'd like to change things up. I always love the Silver Bullets because it gave you the idea they're flying around. No, but I mean this defense that we've talked about it all year. Top to bottom, they're fantastic. I mean, it's crazy to see that it takes until the fifth person for a D lineman to be on the tackle sheet, and it's because our two starting safeties, two linebackers, just do everything. I mean, they come up and hit the holes, they come do everything, and it's crazy.
Yeah, we'll get into Cody Simon here more specifically in a second, as you kind of see on our rundown, because I think he's playing off the charts. But one thing that I thought was really, really good from last week, and we talked about it on Sunday morning when we watched really that film of the game, is they manufactured pressure in a different way. One of the biggest question marks that was really being asked, internally from the Buckeye Nation, but it was starting to creep into the national narrative, was like, hey, this defensive line that Ohio State brought back a bunch of their key guys to was supposed to be one of the best in the entire country. And it wasn't showing out to be that when they were rushing they weren't getting home. You weren't getting that interior pressure from your two defensive tackles, and JT and Jack Sawyer were playing good football, but just weren't the dominant presence that we were all expecting it to be. And then on Saturday against Indiana, Jim Knowles and this whole entire defense really turned up the heat. They had a bunch of pressure packages that I thought were great. That's something that we hadn't really seen consistently. And it was just a new and added wrinkle for opponents, for this Team Up North opponent that we're going to get on Saturday, but also the ones to come after it in this postseason run, to be like, oh man, we don't have to just worry about blocking the four horses that are up front. Ohio State's really starting to cook up some stuff in the back end and make it really challenging to do anything on offense.
Yeah, I mean, you like kind of what Jim Knowles has done this year. He's kind of played it so that no one can really prep for him, which is nice because he throws something new in every single week, which is great. I like it a lot. It'd definitely be hard for an offensive lineman to try and prep for that when you're trying to pick up blitzes. And I guess so we had to cut up of blitzes. They added 4 more. We got to add to the cut up. And when you hear that on a Monday, you're like, what? Like, this cut up's already 60 plays long. What other blitzes do they have? And it's just it throws the psyche off for the offensive line. I can imagine the quarterback as well. It's just weird to go up against a defense that has this deep of a playbook and that's smart enough to run this deep of a playbook. No offense to our defensive people out there, but it always used to be the questions were, hey, what happens when you're an offensive player in a team meeting? Hey, what happens when you have 2 high? You know, you got an overfront. When we're running 14 cab, what are we doing? What are we checking into? Whereas the defense is, who's this guy? And they point at the tight end. Like, it's just what happens. But, you know, it's all right. We got some smart guys on our defense.
That's where I think it kind of boils down to, is that you're able to do that kind of stuff because you're led by guys who are smart enough to do it, right? It's not just as simple as, hey, we're going to do a cross dog blitz and on set hut you go. You got to adjust guys, you got to move guys, and one of the guys that's been a true leader of this defense, and you saw it early on as the blocko, it's Cody Simon. I mean, this guy is truly playing out of his mind, and he's not only one of the best players on this team, but he's one of the best players in the country, and he's really that heart and soul of the defense. Coming into Saturday, this upcoming Saturday, got 65 total tackles, which is good for second best on the team, only behind, you guessed it, Sonny Styles, exactly to the point you just made, Kevin. But he's second in the team in sacks with 5. He's got 4 pass breakups. He's got 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery. And if you look at it from a game-by-game perspective, I mean, last week, leads the team with 10 tackles, 4 solos, 2.5 sacks, 2.5 TFLs. Like, in a game where, hey, got off to a bad start, Cody Simon was the door closer, man, and he made Indiana's life hell, and he's been doing that week after week after week after week.
Yeah, Cody Simon is the guy. I said it before. You know, Caleb Downs is playing out of his mind, but Cody Simon is the heart and soul of this defense. He keeps them going. He gets them going. He wears the green dot for a reason.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about Sonny Styles being out of position, but then he leads the team in tackles. So he's always seems to be there. It almost feels like he hasn't been there at the right time. He's always been a half a step behind, but he always corrects his mistake. He's not really letting up a ton of big plays. Hopefully that continues. It'll be fun to watch him and Cody play this week as they, as well as Caleb, as they play against a team that doesn't throw the ball a lot, and their leading receivers are tight end.
Yeah, it's going to be fun as we're going to dive into the game plan specific stuff, because this group is going to be able to play really with their hair on fire, man. And I'm really excited to see it, because you got a glimpse of it last Saturday against Indiana, where Knowles dialed up a number of blitzes for Cody Simon to get into the backfield, and he was meeting the quarterback and doing so in a not so nice way. So it's been really impressive to watch Cody Simon kind of grow in his role on this defense from, hey, I have to take over the leadership role. I have to be the guy on this defense, and he's done so pretty spectacularly. And the next guy, Caleb Downs, man, he has been so good as just a true sophomore, a transfer from Alabama, and statistically he's been great. I just named the number 2 tackler on our team. Well, the number 3 tackler is Caleb Downs. He's got 50 tackles on the year, a half a sack, 4 pass breakups, and he's really been, 3 pass breakups. But more than that, Kevin, it's been such a special year for him. You touched on it the other day of like, for him, kind of felt like, he had an opportunity to be one of the greats at Alabama, but for whatever the reason is, he decided to transfer over to Ohio State, a better opportunity, potentially a better deal. But it hasn't been like that. He's bought into the Ohio State way of life. He is a Buckeye through and through, and that's been one of the more encouraging parts of this whole season. Outside of his football play, he really feels like he's really embodying what it means to be an Ohio State Buckeye.
He really is. I mean, and he's a great compliment to Lathan, and Lathan's been playing unbelievable. I don't know who's the compliment to who. I mean, you look at the stats. It's wild. They're within 3 tackles of each other. I mean, Lathan's got less of a sack, but he's also got 3 forced fumbles, 1 recovery, and 1 recovery for a touchdown. I mean, he finds the ball, he punches it out well, like most of these DBs are doing. But I mean, the guy I was talking about is Caleb Downs. I mean, Brendan talked about on Sunday that, I forget who it was. I think it was Joel Klatt or something. There was an NFL exec that told him that Caleb Downs would be the first overall pick if he was in the draft this year.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy to say about a second-year safety.
Well, yeah, but he just affects the game in so many ways, and you see it on Saturday, right? He fields a punt, and holy cow, if he had the opportunity to do what Travers Hunter's doing over in Colorado, like how good could he be on the offensive side of the football? He talked about it earlier in the year, like, yeah, I could tote the rock. I could carry it. I could catch some passes. And you saw him with the ball in his hands. I mean, he's electric. But what really fires me up, dude, is like when he is making tackles at the line of scrimmage and then two or 3 plays later, breaking a ball up in the post, man. It's like that's the kind of stuff you can't teach.
Right. No, I mean, everyone talks about how he's already a professional, and that's what all the coaches keep saying. And he just runs around with his head on fire, and people are like, why is he so close? Why is he always at the ball? Is he just gambling and guessing the right way every time? It's like, no, he knows what's coming. He's reading. Yeah. He's looking at the formation. He's seeing 100 times. Like, all right, well, depending on what way this tackle goes, I know if it's a run or a pass based on this formation, and I don't know, 4 times out of 5 they go here. The other time they go here. So if I pick that spot, I'll probably get it, and then they won't run it again.
Yeah.
So that's where it's impressive to watch. It's like he's playing chess and everyone else is playing checkers.
It's really special, and like you said, it's impressive. It's fun to watch, and he always shows up right from the first snap all the way through the end to the last snap. We saw it against Indiana. He had that first tackle of the game, really to set the tone. Man, he tackled the dude in the hole, coming from 10 yards of depth, like you said. All of those things, hit on his keys, triggered. Made a very decisive, play, and he's right there to tackle the guy at the line of scrimmage. So Caleb Downs has been awesome. He's been as good as advertised. One group that has been as bad as advertised is this Team Up North offense, man. As we were prepping for this show, I was like, man, maybe we should just let Kevin roll on this one, because you got onto our call laughing, because I think you said this offense as a total yards ranking isn't even in the top 150 in the country.
No, they're 128th. Every Louisiana team is better than them, including University of Louisiana Monroe and Louisiana Tech. They have under 300 total yards a game with only 28 touchdowns. It's crazy how far they regressed from last year. They have a revolving door at quarterback. I mean, they only get about 160 yards rushing, which isn't terrible. I mean, it's not great by any means, but it's pretty middle of the pack. It's about 71st in the country, 17 touchdowns. Notable teams better than them are ECU, UMass, and University of Louisiana Monroe again. And then their passing is where they really fall apart. They're 127th in the country with only 140 yards passing per game. I talked about the quarterback. They have 11 touchdowns. Notable teams that are better than them, Kent State, who's terrible this year, and Northwestern. They're barely above Iowa, and Iowa hasn't been able to throw the ball since the toaster was invented. I mean, that it's a crazy stat to have. Like, they were so senior heavy last year, and guys who wanted to get to the league before the hammer came down on them for what their coaches chose to do. I don't blame them for going to the league that early, but you're seeing it affect this team right now.
Yeah, and they don't do anything well. Like obviously to do, to say those, to go through those stats. I'm not saying a hot take here, but their leading rusher, or excuse me, their leading passer is Davis Warren, and this guy is a walk on. This is a former preferred walk on to the university, so that walk ons come in many shapes and sizes. Right. He was a preferred walk on. He's probably a really good player in high school, just not quite good enough. It wasn't like me walking on to Ohio State and going and moving all my stuff in and then going over to the facility and trying to grab a helmet. A little bit different than that, but still, this isn't even a scholarship guy in Davis Warren. And he's really struggled pulling the trigger on the year. He's just over 60 or just at 64% completion, which isn't horrible, not great, not bad, but just over 1,000 yards with 1,064 yards and 6 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. And the reason that they don't do any, you can't throw against them, is because they have no threat on the outside. Their leading receiver is Colston Loveland. He was their best player last year, I'd say, on offense outside of their running backs. He was their biggest threat. And truthfully, this team really hasn't had, this program hasn't had that scarier receiver for a very, very long time. But on the outside, they're led by Tyler Morris, who this is their leading receiver, not just this. This isn't just their leading pass catch. Like, this is like their Jeremiah Smith, 22 catches for 234 yards and just 2 touchdowns. Like, that is our guy. Like, compare that to Emeka and Jeremiah and Carnell and Brandon Ennis. Like, he would be 5th in that group. And all those guys had those yardages and those touchdowns in just like 2 or 3 games. It's like really, really bad when they try to throw the football.
Yeah, I mean, and then they're going up against this Ohio State defense that's number 1 in total defense. I mean, they're giving up only 240 yards, and they've only given up 12 touchdowns this year, which I'll be fair. I'll name people that are better than them as well. Nobody's better than them in total defense. That's 0 because they're number 1. They're 3rd in rushing defense, giving up only 90 yards and 8 touchdowns. Indiana's better than them, but who cares? We beat Indiana, so whatever. Cool, good for you. And then passing, they're 4. They're 1, 3, and 4 in those 3 ranks. They're only giving up 150. They're actually giving up more passing yards a game than TTUN is averaging passing yards per game, which is a wild thing to say. Like, TTUN's averaging 140 passing yards a game. We're giving up 151. So I don't even want to know how low this is going to be. And the only team that's one of the top ranked team in the nation is Notre Dame, but they played Army and Navy. So of course they're the best defense against the pass. They played 2 teams that do not pass the ball.
Yeah. And I'd say what also to add to that is, I mean, this team has the best group, has the best athletes. They're playing really good, but they're really hot right now. Like, they're coming off of one of their best performances of the year, where they faced an Indiana team that was rolling a little bit, had all the momentum, all the excitement. And what did they do? They gave up 68 yards passing and 85 yards rushing. 85 yards rushing on 40 carries. They're giving up 2 yards a pop. And like that, I don't care who that is. Like, I don't care if it's peewee, high school, middle school, grade school, college. 2 yards a carry is insane. And the fact that they did that over 40 carries is nuts, man. This group has everything you want in a defense, but they're playing so good right now. But not even to mention the fact that they're going to be salivating on Saturday to really do some nasty stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the thing to remember, for those that are thinking back on the game, like, wait, that running back had like 3 or 4 yard carries. That factors in the sack yardage, where Rourke was playing like I do in NCAA, where you just start running backwards until someone gets open. It's
true. That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
But it's still impressive. I mean, like, even with that many sack yardage, we still only held them to under 2 yards a carry, about 2 yards a carry, which is just insane. Like, if you hold a team to under 100 yards in rushing in a game, it's very impressive. There's few teams, if any, that are doing it on average. But I mean, like, Indiana's one of them. But I mean, it's crazy to think about that is what we're dealing with as an offense, or as an Ohio State fan with this defense.
Yeah, and one thing that you touched on here is looking backwards, and if we look back to the games of the past, right, the past couple of years, one name that really is in Ohio State's memory is Donovan Edwards. But this year, this isn't even a number one back on their team. It's the number one guy is Khalil Mullings, who comes into the game with 832 yards on 150 carries for 11 scores, just over 5 yards a pop. And Edwards on the other side, it's really odd, man. The fall off here has been pretty crazy too. 124 carries, 578 yards, just 4 touchdowns. But that average is much, much lower. I mean, last couple years, he's hit a couple big home runs, and he's been a guy where it's like, like when he gets in space, look out. But this year, it just really hasn't been that way for him in this offense.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's similar to, I've said it before, the Tony Pollard effect. Like when you have Blake Corum, and Tony Pollard's not having a bad year. I mean, he's close to 1,000 yards this year in rushing, but he's got spikes that helps alleviate it. But I mean, you look at him last year with Dallas, with Blake Corum comes in and starts wearing down the defense, and then Donovan Edwards comes in with fresh legs and takes the top off. And that's the beauty of it. But when you're the number one back, you got a lot of responsibility. When you're on the cover of NCAA, you got a lot of responsibility. And you know who hasn't lived up to that? There's 3 people on the cover: Quinn Ewers, Donovan Edwards, Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter, Heisman probably winner, betting favorite currently, and is probably winning the Heisman because he's doing something we haven't seen since Deion Sanders. Quinn Ewers, with the exception of him getting hurt for those few games, he's played phenomenally. It's like that meme where you see the 2 dragons are normal face looking at the dragon making the stupid face. That's what it is. And I mean, Donovan just isn't. He was supposed to be the perennial back this year. It was supposed to be the Big Ten of running backs. The best running back in the Big Ten outside of R2 is the guy at Iowa.
Yeah. It's been shocking. That's the most shocking thing that we've learned, going into this week, is that it's Mullings first, Mullings second, and then Donovan Edwards is kind of picking up the scraps because you expected a lot out of him this year, and it's really not going his way. And going into this game, that's why teams, they're not scared of the pass because you got to walk on throwing the ball. They can stuff the box and make it really hard for Michigan to throw it. And when you're playing offense like that, I mean, good luck against anybody, but send a prayer against the number one defense in the country is what they'll be facing come Saturday afternoon. So, Kevin, as we put a bow on this show here, what's your keys to victory for Ohio State when this defense is on the field?
Just don't let up the big plays and stop them out early. I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at. This is a rivalry game, so emotions are going to be high. Anyone can win in a rivalry game. You just got to stomp it out quickly. Like if you can get that stadium rocking and just put a stranglehold on that offense, a few 3-and-outs to start the game. I mean, that they're gonna look around like, should we just get on the bus and drive back up home at halftime? Like and if Will Howard decides to throw one of his famous interceptions, keep that thumb, don't break. The big play, the big game interception is in Will's repertoire. He starts the game with it, and then he eases out of it. I mean, that's just what we're dealing with.
You're not wrong. You are absolutely not wrong. I think you make a really good point. It's like, all right, what are the things you put this team on paper, you put this game on paper, just basically what we just did. Ohio State should win this game by 42 points, right? Their offense should dominate. This defense, in theory, if you were playing this on video games, like you could hold Michigan with this defense under 50 yards. Like that's just kind of what we're looking at here. But when you do play in a rivalry situation, in a rivalry game, throw all the numbers out the window. Stuff can get weird quickly. And I think that if, like to your point, take care of business early. Let them have zero belief, because that's the only thing that they can build a game plan off of, right? Is like, hey, stick in it, and then strike when you get the chance. I think for me, it is just like what you talked about it some weeks back, maybe when we were playing Iowa. Like you brought out the 3-and-out counter. Like, hey, I want 5. Like that should be on the board on come Sunday. Like, hey, we had 10 3-and-outs because we didn't let those guys breathe.
No, I would love to see one of those games where it's like offensive player of the game, so-and-so, defensive player of the game, the defense.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of game I want to see. I want them to have, in a perfect world, they have under 50 total yards. They have 0 points. Nobody gets hurt, but everyone feels bad about themselves after the game. That's kind of the goal that I want TTUN North to feel getting back on that bus for a multitude of reasons. Karma, everything under the sun. But it's it's been a fun year, and this would be a great cherry on top of a regular season that has, outside of Oregon, has been a great year.
Yeah.
And even with Oregon, a 1-point loss in the top 3 game in the country, 3 versus 2 at 3 at night. I mean, what are you going to do?
Dude, you look back on this season, and we'll kind of get to wrapping on this, but you look back on this season, I was listening to one of the shows earlier in the week this week, and it was like, yeah, every week you and I do this, and we prep for the games, but when you look back, you're like, Ohio State has played in 3 top 5 matchups this year. They're 2-1 in those top 5 matchups, and in those 2 games, you know, the Penn State one, a closer game, but you dominate your last biggest one, and this Buckeye team, man, is just, we've questioned them early. We questioned them early in the year, and then they just got better and better and better and better. And now they're talking about, you know, the odds-on favorite to win the title. They're the betting favorite. It's just all going the right direction, man. And for Saturday, like you said, has the opportunity to be a big cherry on top of let's call it a cherry on top of the pumpkin pie that you're hopefully eating right now. So, Kevin, as we get out of here, last question, your favorite Thanksgiving dessert, what is it?
God, this stupid hat. I talked about it in yesterday's show. I missed my haircut, so I got to wear hats. Favorite dessert? Okay, so my brother's apple pie. I can maybe do a slice of pumpkin. Honestly, just give me the ice cream with some chocolate syrup and some whipped cream on top. That's the easiest thing for me. Very cut and dry type day.
Kev says, skip the pie. I just want, give me some turkey, give me some mashed potatoes, give me some ice cream, and I am good on all that. For me, I'm loading that thing up with pies, brother. Let's go pumpkin, let's go apple, let's go peach, whatever you got. I'm loading that thing up with pies. And then when you see me on Friday or Saturday, I'll be looking like I am 3 million pounds. So no, really appreciate everybody jumping in and hanging out with us. I know that's Thanksgiving Day, so if you're traveling, you got us on in the car, or if you're hitting this back up on Friday as you're heading down to Columbus for the game, we really appreciate you jumping in and listening along with us. You can find more content just like this and all of the other content that we like to put out here on our YouTube page, Ohio State Buckeyes on SI. So hit that subscribe button. Then for all of our written content, if you haven't been there, head over there, si.com/college/Ohio State. Not only is that filled with Ohio State football content, but I know we got guys covering both basketball teams, both men and women's. We got wrestling coverage, all sorts of good stuff over there. So check that on out. I know our team is working really hard. So as we wrap up this show, be safe getting down to Columbus for the game this weekend. Enjoy the rest of your Thanksgiving Day with friends and family. And for my partner, Kevin Woidke, I'm Anthony Moeglin. Thanks for hanging out with us on another episode of the Buckeye Breakdown Podcast.